Hello. Today I want to do a quick review of something a bit different from my usual content. What we have here is a small emulation box for playing retro games. It's called the Super Console X Pro. You would think they'd come with a better name, but anyway, it costs around 60 to 70 US dollars, and it comes with a power adapter. See it here, it's rated for 12 volts, 1 amp. And then it comes with two wireless controllers. These are PS2 style, but they don't feel quite as good as original PS2 controllers, but they're not too bad. Plastic feels a little bit cheaper and they're a lot lighter, but generally I would say they work just fine. They do need two AAA batteries to run, but we can take a look later at what is the power consumption and what is the expected battery life. And then it comes with a USB hub, 4-port hub here. So it does have two USB ports built in, but this is too extended because it supports up to 4 controllers simultaneously if you want to play 4-player games. So that's quite nice. And then it comes with a remote control as well, because you can boot the box up in Android mode, so it will just be like an Android box, TV box. You can watch YouTube, Netflix, whatever. I think that's not so useful, but hey, the option is there and it does come with the remote control. And then there's the interesting part. It comes with a pre-installed 128GB SD card that comes with games and emulators and everything pre-configured on it. So you basically just need to plug it in and then you can start using it right away. And finally it comes with a HDMI cable. So you got everything you need, just to plug it into your TV and start using it. So let's have a quick look at the specs. So it comes with a S905X ARM Cortex chipset with 4 cores running at 1.5 GHz plus a Mali 450 GPU. And it's got 1 GB of memory, so that's quite small in today's world. I mean, you can hardly get a phone with less than 4 GB. But anyway, as long as it runs well, then it doesn't matter. And then we have Ethernet port, and it also got Wi-Fi built in. And as I mentioned before, we have 2 USB ports, and then we have an AV out. So if you connect to an older TV without HDMI, you can use the AV out. And we got the power supply input here, and HDMI out, and we got a power button here. And it's got an internal storage partition, 8 GB for running the Android operating system. And then it's got the 128GB SD card here for running the Emulation operating system. So if you go out shopping for one of these, they're available on AliExpress, eBay, Amazon. I'm sure they have them Banggood as well, and various places you can shop. But be aware there are 2 versions. There's the Super Console X and the Super Console X Pro. So from what I understand, the major difference is that the Pro version is just a newer version. It's not particularly more powerful. It might be a slight bit powerful. It's a little bit different chipset, but it's not a big deal. But from what I understand, it runs newer software, and it's also the only version that supports booting into Android if that's important to you. So I recommend getting the Pro version. They seem to cost about the same, unless you can get a really good deal on the older version. And I should probably mention it does come with a small instruction sheet here. It's somewhat useful. It goes through some of the basic features, but it's also got like a small sheet here where you can see all the button combinations for some of the special features, like doing save states and loading save states and changing the volume and how to exit a game or restart and all these kind of stuff here. So that's quite useful. There's some printed on the back as well. Somehow you load your own games onto it and various other information. So generally useful, and it's okay English. It's actually readable, so quite good. First time you boot up the console, it will start up in Android. So what we have here is an older version of Android. Is version 7 something, and it comes with pre-installed apps like Chrome, Kodi, Netflix, YouTube, and you do have the Play Store as well. So you can install apps, but considering it's an old version of Android and that it's only got 1 gigabyte of memory. I don't expect this to work very well. I expect most newer apps will not run on this box. However, to get into the interesting part, just select the EmuElec icon here, and it will ask you if you're going to reboot into EmuElec, or it's actually EmuElec. So we say OK here, and then we'll get into our emulation part. So from now on it will continue to reboot into EmuElec, but you can of course boot back into the Android operating system. Just hit the select button on the controller to bring up this menu here, and then you say boot from NAND. Then it will go back into Android and start booting Android again. Anyway, we can have a quick look at what systems are included. Here we start out with the good old Commodore 64. Then we have the Sega Dreamcast and some arcade systems here. The Famicom Disk System, Game & Watch. I can't imagine I would want to play those because, well, from what I remember, they were not that great. And then we have the Game Gear, the original Game Boy, Game Boy Advance, Game Boy Color, Sega Genesis, and television. And here we have more arcade games, Sega Master Systems, Sega Genesis, MSX, Nintendo 64, Sega Naomi. So I'm not particularly familiar with this system, but it only comes with 6 games, so it's probably not that important. I guess it's some kind of arcade system. And then we have the Nintendo DS, Neo Geo CD, Neo Geo, the good old NES, Neo Geo Pocket, Neo Geo Pocket Color, Odyssey. I'm not very familiar with this system either. Open Beats of Rage, not familiar with this, but it's probably some arcade games. TurboGrafx 16, TurboGrafx CD, Pokemon Mini, not familiar with this one, but it looks like it's just some small Pokemon handhelds. And then we have a number of ports. We can take a quick look here. Cannonball, Quake, Cave Story, Commander Keen, Diablo, Doom 1 and 2. So, well, Prince of Persia, Red Dangerous. That might be good fun to play some of these again. Then we have the PlayStation Portable, PSP, and the original PlayStation, Sega 32X, Sega CD, SG-1000, and the good old Super Nintendo, Super Graphics, Vectrex, Virtual Boy, Wonder Swan Color, X68000, kind of the Japanese version of the Commodore Amiga, and the good old Sinclair ZX Spectrum. And then it comes with some collections here as well. So here's a collection, simply just all games in one list. I don't know how useful that is, but you can see there's 41,501 games in total. That is quite a lot, especially if you have one list and you want to look through them. So this is much more important. So there's a favorites section here, so you can easily make favorites of all the games under the various systems, and then you can have them in here, easily access them under favorites. And last played, I think that's quite nice as well. Maybe you played something, you don't remember what the name was, and you just go in here and see what it was. Then we have the good old Amiga, and the slightly newer Amiga 1200, and the Amstrad CPC. And then we have the Atari consoles, 2600, 5200, 7800, and the good old Atari 800 home computer, the portable Atari Lynx, Atari ST, Atomic Wave. Not particularly familiar with this system, but I assume it's an arcade system. And back to the Commodore 64. I'll say for me, the inclusion of the 8 and 16 32-bit home computer systems really makes this box much more interesting to me, because I've owned many of these systems over the years and only got into many of the consoles later on. Okay, enough talk. Let's have a look at some games. I'll start with the home computers. So let's start with the Atari 800. And let's do Montezuma's Revenge, classic game for this computer. So the Atari 800 is a great computer, but it was very expensive back in the day. Then we have the Commodore 64. Now let's do Mayhem and Monsterland. So most of the Commodore 64 games on this console are cracked games. That means they often come with trainers. So for example, here it's asking you on unlimited time. And well, we only have a controller, but if we hit the select button, we can bring up like an on-screen keyboard. And here we can say, okay, do we want lives, unlimited? I'll just say yes here. And continues. Just leave it in vulnerability. No. Want to go on? Don't know what that means. Game keys, no. So the Commodore 64 doesn't really need much of an introduction. It is still the best-selling computer of all time. And generally for all the systems, once you want to exit a game, just hold down the select button and then you hit the play button twice, and then it will just quit the game and go back to the menu. And next, let's do the Sinclair ZX Spectrum. It's got a lot of games for a system that was never designed to run games, and it does pretty well, all things considered. So let's try Robocop. So in here, for example, if you want to make this a favorite, just select the game and click the X button. Then it will become a favorite. See, now it's got a star up here. And now it's much easier next time you want to play it, because it's very hard to find games here. You can use the shoulder buttons, then you can scroll quicker through the games, but still, it's quite a lot of games here to scroll through, 5,000 something. Anyway, let's try Robocop. Next, let's do the Amstrad CPC. And here, let's try Chase XQ.
Hold on, man.
So I'll say the Amstrad CPC is a decent 8-bit computer. But unfortunately, many of the games it got were just lazy ZX Spectrum ports. However, this game here, Chase XQ, is an exception. It's actually quite good, quite impressive for being on an 8-bit system. Generally, I would say the Amstrad CPC is always very colorful. But as you can hear, the sound is not that great. Anyway, still an interesting system. Next, let's do the Amiga. So it's really a worthy successor to the Commodore 64. Let's try Stunt Car Racer. This is one of the first 3D games that are actually fun to play on the home computers. Let's do a practice here. So it might not seem very impressive by today's standard, but trust me, back in the day this was an excellent game, and it's still fun to play. Because it's got quite nice physics, and it's not that easy. So this time I'm just playing practice, but usually you'll be racing against an opponent, and you're doing like a championship, see if you can win. So it's not an easy game, but it's a lot of fun. Oops, off the track. So one thing I haven't mentioned is that you can do quick save states. So if you hit the select button, and then I hit now the right shoulder button, then it will do a save state. This works on all systems. So if I go in here, and now I can do a quick load of my save state. I just hit the select button again, and then I hit the left shoulder button. Then it will just quickly load back to where we were. So that's quite a nice feature. Anyway, let's look at some more games. So once we get into these later home computer systems like the Amiga, the Atari ST, many of the best games actually require a mouse to play, like the Lemmings here, a very classic game. And what I found out that you can actually connect a mouse. So I have this Logitech keyboard and mouse combination, just with a USB wireless, and it actually works fine. So let's see here, I'll try to open Lemmings. So here I have the Logitech mouse and keyboard connected, and I can use the mouse just fine. So that really opens up a lot more games. Anyway, you can see this works perfectly fine. This also means we can play other classic games like The Secrets of Monkey Island. And with the game loaded up here, I can just quickly load the save state from last time I played the game. Right, so here you can see I'm back into the game just as I left it last time. So if you never played Monkey Island, you should give it a go. It's really an excellent game. It also means we can play games like The Settlers. This is a really good strategy game. It's definitely worth your time if you want to give it a go. And next, let's have a quick look at the Atari ST. So it's direct competitor to the Commodore Amiga. Perhaps not quite as strong on graphics and sound, but still a very nice computer system. Okay, let's have a quick look at some arcade games. All the classic arcade games I've tried run perfectly fine. However, I assume it will struggle with some of the later 3D arcade games. But personally, I'm more into the old classics. Finally, let's have a look at some of the consoles. I'll run through and show some of them. All the NES games I try to run perfectly fine. I don't expect there will be any problems with any NES games. Then we have the Sega Master System, and all the games I tried here as well, also running just fine. Then we have the Super Nintendo. Again, all the Super Nintendo games I've tried to run just fine. Don't expect there will be any problems. Then we have Game Boy. Unfortunately, there's a bit of a problem with the scaling here. You can see you just end up with like a small square in the middle of the screen. Probably change the configuration to fix this, but not so great. So unfortunately, it's the same problem on the Game Boy Advance and the Game Boy Color. But besides that, the game seems to run fine. And the PlayStation 1. So all the PlayStation 1 games I've tried to run perfectly fine, no problems. Nintendo 64. Here most games seem to run just fine. But when we get into games like GoldenEye, then it falls apart a bit. You can see here, well, it is a game that's notoriously hard to emulate, but it starts to struggle. It's something I would say is probably not even, it's not really playable at all. Then we have the Dreamcast.
Attention all units.
And
Suspect seen heading south.
this runs surprisingly well. No problems here. It seems to run full frame rate. Of course, I've skipped a lot of consoles, but if there's anything specific you would like to see or know about, just leave a comment. So one thing that's very important when we talk about emulation controls is whether there's any input lag, especially when we talk about wireless controllers. But I will say I haven't noticed any input lag at all on these. They seem to react instantaneously on button presses, so that's pretty good. I would say it's much more important if you use the console on a TV, that if your TV got some kind of game mode that lowers the lag, then you should make sure you enable that. That's probably gonna have a lot more lag than any input lag there might be here. But I've noticed no input lag. It works perfectly fine. I've also tried other controllers. I got this Xbox 360 controller here with a USB wireless. That works perfectly fine as well. Just plug it in and it will start working. You might have to do a quick setup, just select what to do with the buttons and just map them, but besides that, then it works just great. I even tried an original PS2 controller using one of these little USB adapters here, and that actually worked great as well, no problems. So I would guess if you got any USB controller, it will probably work on this console here. And besides that, we know it works also with mouse and keyboard. Plus, it's got Bluetooth built in, so it will probably work with Bluetooth controllers as well. I haven't tested that though, so I can't promise that. Okay, let's do a quick measurement here on the power consumption so we get some kind of idea of what battery life to expect on these controllers here. So I put a couple of small sheets of copper in here just to break off the battery connection, and then we can put a multimeter in here. There we go. So we can see it's sitting at around 11 milliamps and the total works just fine. So that's not bad at all. That's quite good. So I'm using some rechargeable inner loop batteries here. I think they're about 500-600 milliamps. So that should give us something like 40-50 hours of use before we need to recharge the batteries. So that's quite good. And it also automatically goes into power saving mode, so it goes into a standby mode after about 5 minutes. So let me just try to leave it for 5 minutes until it goes into standby. Then we can see what the power consumption is like there. Okay, it's now got into standby mode and we can see, well, actually we're down in the microamps. It's like 15-16 microamps. So I think that's quite good. That means it can sit in standby for years before it drains the batteries. And you just press a button and then it wakes up. So that works quite well. But of course, keep in mind, if you're going to leave something like this in standby, make sure you use batteries that don't leak. These in the loop, they don't leak. But if you use normal alkaline batteries, there's always a risk they're going to start leaking. So if you find it doesn't come with a game you really want to play, then it's very easy to upload new ROMs to the console. You just browse to EmuElec and then it will show all the folders on the device as a network drive, and then you just go into the ROMs folder, and here you can see all the different computers and consoles And you can just go in here and then you can upload your own ROMs. So that's very, very easy. And for those interested in what's actually included, I've made a dump of this whole directory structure here. I put it in a text file, so there's a link in the description where you can download that if you want to have a look through it. But keep in mind, the game collection on here is not perfect. I have run into several games that didn't run. Some of them you can fix by changing the configuration and selecting a different emulator, but other games are just broken. And if you want to play something like Atari ST games, it can be quite painful because you have to swap disks inside the emulator UI, and it's not particularly easy to do. So it would be great if there was some kind of community curated collection and configuration, but I guess that's not going to happen. Anyway, I'll say if you're into a bit of retro gaming and you don't want the hassle of using original hardware or spending days configuring emulators and collecting ROMs, then I highly recommend this little console here. I think it's quite cheap considering everything that's included, and that you just need to plug it in and then you can start playing game and exploring the various collections of games. Anyway, I think that's it for this review. I hope you found it interesting and useful. If you have any specific questions about the console, feel free to leave a comment. So thanks for watching, and then I'll see you next time. Bye bye.